Hi, you've reached Call Your Publicist, your go-to source for PR moves, media moments, and brand strategies that keep businesses and people in the headlines for the right reasons. I'm one of your hosts, Jenna Guarneri, CEO and founder of James G Public Relations.
And I'm your co-host, Alexandra Anastasio. Let's start talking.
Rosella, thank you so much for joining us today. So for those of you who don't know, Rosella Rago, author, entrepreneur, and founder of Cooking with Nonna, a cooking series and lifestyle brand born from her relationship with Nonna. So talk to us a little bit about how you found your niche, right? You successfully created a brand that combines both your Italian heritage and also the food from that Italian heritage. Tell us more.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me and serving as my unofficial publicist.
That's what
you know,
for.
it's
That's what friends are for.
I honestly, I've called Jen in the midst of, crises, and she's always helped and she's always done a great job. So people should pay you for this.
You know what? I agree.
Yes.
I agree, but not friends.
You're really
Never
good at
friends.
it. You really no one day. I'm not above that.
But I do enjoy your calls because they're always very interesting. There's always an interesting hook tied to it.
There's always a story.
There's always a story.
We love a good story.
I just I seem to attract interesting situations. So I think Jen just likes them because they're unique.
They're very unique. You could write a book.
Yeah, maybe.
Nothing is off the table.
Yeah. But I always say that Cooking with Nonna sort of happened to me. I didn't really have, I didn't architect that idea back in 2008. I was on a very different path in life. I was studying to become an Italian teacher at St. John's University because I grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn in the late 80s and early 90s. And my family is what I like to call Orthodox Italian. So my parents are immigrants and I was first generation Italian American. And, I didn't speak English until I was 5. And I had this really, really nuanced upbringing. And I think where I grew up was the golden age of Italian America. I'm so grateful that I got to experience that. But I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. So I just went to college and I studied Italian, like all the girls in my neighborhood who could speak Italian natively did. And I think my family always saw something bigger for me, something different for me, because my mother's an actress. She was a theater actress in Italy, and then she did film and TV when I was a little girl. And I was always kind of in that realm, so to speak, because my mother had a theater company and she did her first major motion picture when I was 8 years old, a movie called Sleepers with Brad Pitt and Robert De Niro.
Very cool.
Yeah, and she had gotten me and my brother into acting when I was 11 years old. My first job, my first day of work was on season 1 of The Sopranos.
I love that.
I just rewatched the series, and now you're going to make me go back.
It's the wedding scene.
Okay.
In season 1, I forgot what episode. I think it's episode 8.
That was probably a good craft services table.
It was, every day was like the cocktail hour of a wedding.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I worked on it.
The best part of the wedding.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked on it on and off throughout the 6 seasons, and there was never another cast and set like Sopranos. There never will be again. But that kind of got me addicted, not to show business, but just to that kind of energy of creating and being a part of a crew and a set and a team like that. So when I was in college, my father came to dinner one night. I was living with my Nonna. I was dorming with her.
She was dormant.
That's great. That's
because
probably the best dorm partner because but you're eating good.
No, there are no boundaries in Italian American families. Right. So we shared a bedroom. I mean, the food was fantastic. I mean, if I came home at 2 a.m, she was just in the recliner waiting. She was like, "You gotta call me." I'm like, I just want to be young and go out, but that really wasn't available to me. I mean, even you just had no privacy.
Right.
We shared a bedroom, so that I'm taking a shower, washing my hair, and she's pulls the curtain, what do you want to eat today? And I'm like, can we have one conversation where I'm not naked?
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
Unknowingly, that was my culinary school. She would just cook every single day, something different. Taralli one day, focaccia another day. It was just being around that was so precious for me.
Absolutely.
And so one day, this is a long story, my father comes to dinner and we're clearing the table and he goes, Ma, what do you want to do with your life? You're going to be a terrible teacher. We all know.
It's like
Okay, thanks, Dad.
Cameron Diaz.
Yeah, like I'm like, you all know. Like, did you have a summit and decide?
They had to sit down.
Yeah, like great. And I just said out loud, I want to have a cooking show one day. That's the greatest job in the world. And he laughed, and he goes, "Yeah, you know what? We should call it Cooking with Nonna."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Oh, that's so funny." You know, it was a joke. And a week later, he bought the web domain cookingwithnonna.com. And in 2008, it was very cool to have a website. Now every asshole has a website, but in 2008, this was a very big deal. It was very cool.
And your father was right on point, grabbing the name before somebody else took it.
My father was a telecommunications engineer. He worked for an Italian company for many years. So he was familiar with these things. And a week after he bought the domain, I was like, oh, that's so funny. And then he started construction on the set that we used to cook on, this rollaway island with like a burner and everything. He built that himself. It had wheels.
I think Dad wanted Cooking with Nonna so he could be part of the crew.
Yeah, like that was really his dream at first, you know, and he kept it alive in all those years when I was a brat and I was like, I want to be an actress. I don't want to be, you know, this like grandma girl, you know. And but we were doing something so big, I didn't realize it, because I became the first influencer to cook with Italian grandmothers. Mm-hmm. That's an insane thing for me to think about. I get asked about that all the time. Like, are you that? People stole your right. I was like, people didn't steal anything. There were grandmothers and daughters before me. I just, you know, pressed record.
This is true.
And I'm glad, because what this means is that people are spending time with their grandparents in a way that they never did before. They're asking the important questions. They're recording all of this oral history.
And you have that now. Mm-hmm. Like, that's like, that will live forever, right? Yeah. Like, you don't, like, I grew up with my grandparents. So we lived in the same house, like a 2-family house. Mm-hmm. And I always say, like, if you can live with your grandparents or be in their life present on a pretty consistent basis, how lucky are you? Right? Like, every Sunday it was downstairs for dinner and there was no question. You weren't going anywhere. You just knew 2:00 you were downstairs, and don't come later than 2. Otherwise my grandma was ringing the bell.
And now it's not like that anymore. Now there's dance competitions, there's sports, there's all this kind of stuff. But, you know, as millennials, we really did get to live the tail ends of that. You know, and how important is that? Because to me, my grandmother was born in 1933, and all the women that I worked with over the years were the same generation. And that was the greatest generation that has ever lived. You know, you really can't convince me otherwise. That my grandmother's generation was a part of the greatest generation that has ever lived, that sacrificed so much, but still got to experience some of the fruits of their labor. Yep. And, you know, that's what my work is really about, is celebrating those people. Because, you know, I think I have problems. I don't have problems. We don't have problems.
Right.
What's our problem? That Starbucks is charging for almond milk?
Or they're missing the almond
milk
that day.
Exactly.
What's the problem when you talk to somebody like that? Who's immigrated to a new country or several new countries, who's lost everything, figured out how to work and get it all back, and raised a family with nothing, nothing. And made food out of simple ingredients and fed everybody.
Yep. Some of them living in small apartments, you know, tight quarters, packing in 30 people. And now somebody else, I can't. I don't have a big enough house. Right. I do not have a big enough house.
The kitchen I grew up cooking in was a corner in a basement. And, you know, the tables would zigzag on holidays and nothing matched. And now we have these like beautifully curated home goods tablescapes. And it's so far away from the, you know, what's really important.
Yeah. And I'm picturing you and Nonna behind the island cooking together. She clearly has the buy-in, is like all in on this, right, to support you in this. Now you record your first video, you hit play, you upload it. What's the reception like?
So my first episode of Cooking with Nonna was not with my Nonna, actually. It was with a friend of, my first episode of Cooking with Nonna was not actually with my Nonna. because we treated this like a real show. We hired the audiovisual department because you could not film this on a phone in 2009.
Oh, this is true.
Oh my
So
gosh.
they came with the big JVC cameras.
Dad had it all covered.
We tried,
Yeah.
we did the best we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
But we really tried to do it as professionally as possible. I had a hair and makeup person
That's fantastic.
putting purple eyeshadow on me. Those were rough style moments.
Oh my! That was before the winged eyeliner was
that was
perfected.
it was a weird time, I gotta say, with that. But Angela would get on the phone and be like, "My daughter, she's doing the show. Do you want to do a show?" So she called up one of my friend's moms, Rosella, and she was the first episode of Cooking with Nonna. And we did like pasta con sarda and this other Sicilian sardine thing. We wanted to make their regional dishes,
Right?
And for 10 years, nobody gave a shit about Cooking with Nonna. Easily. Nobody understood what I was doing because there were no food influencers at the time. If you were on YouTube creating food content, you were a restaurant chef or a professionally trained chef. You weren't, Rosella Rago from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. You didn't look like me. You didn't sound like me. So the beginning of my career, I was very aware of that there was nobody really like me. And I thought I was 22 years old, so I was kind of afraid to really be myself. I really wanted to model myself after the women that were cooking on Food Network. And so I had to change my voice. I didn't really talk like that. So now I get a lot of comments like, "You talk different." And I was like, maybe that voice was fake.
Oh, could you imagine a Rosella without the accent?
No, I really
Doesn't seem
can't.
natural.
I know, but I had these short little pink nails that I could not stand. I wore a lot of sweater sets.
Who were you?
I don't know. I didn't know who I was. I was trying to craft this perfect image of what I thought I was supposed to be like, and the grandmothers were just themselves. And in working with so many women who had seen so much and been through so much, over that 10 years, you learn the importance of being authentic and just being yourself. And they were all so calm. They had such calm energy because, they had just lived through so much, and they were really inspiring in the way that they were just like, "This is who I am. This is the life I've built." And in working with them, I got a lot more comfortable with myself. And, I also had a lot of imposter syndrome. I didn't think that I was like, who the hell am I to make cooking videos? What the hell do I know? I'm not a trained chef. I cook in the basement with my Nonna,
That is your training, or was your training?
It was, and it is, and it's valid because, but I felt so self-conscious for myself. Like the Nonnas, forget about it. They didn't care. They were like, "This is how I've been making this for the past 40 years. This is how I'm going to make it."
Well, they were in their element.
Yeah.
So.
But it was, life school for me.
And I love two things you said. The authenticity. That's so important these days, especially post-COVID, right? Everyone wants to feel a personal connection to a brand, to an organization. They love seeing the face of it, right? And then also the imposter syndrome. So many founders or so many people who are trying to get into social media have that imposter syndrome, and they don't feel comfortable in it, right? But it's such an important part of building a brand, because you can have a business but not have a brand. And I think that's something you've developed so well for yourself, because you're a brand and you're a business at the same time. And you have your online shop. You have a lot of things. The food tour going on in Sicily in the summertime. There's a lot, and you're always thinking of ways to brand yourself. So I think, how do you as a brand keep reinventing yourself?
I think my career and my brand is something that I've always cared very much about, but ultimately I've been detached from it. Like I really did, my love life was another story, but my business and my brand, I really did sit back and kind of let God, the universe, show me where I was supposed to go. And, the right things came at the perfect time. This didn't happen all at once. It was a very slow progression. At first there were videos, and then our first product, I can't even remember what year we launched my first product, which was the Nonna knife, because there were these little plastic handle knives that are, very cheap in Italy, that every Nonna has. Every single Nonna's house, you open the drawer, there's these knives. And my Nonna used that for everything. She never used fancy chef knives. I don't use fancy sharp
Right.
knives. I don't know how to use that. Like I cut like an idiot.
Right.
But I cut into my hands, the way you're not supposed to, the way they teach you not to cut. But every Nonna uses these knives. They all cut the exact same way. And people started saying, it was very organic. People started seeing it and saying, I want that knife. Where do I get that knife? So we figured out how to import the knives. We repackaged them as the Nonna knife. And then the cheese grater. My Nonna has this little cheese grater that she would use. It's not the most effective cheese grater. Like, it's not as effective as a microplane, but it was so nostalgic for people.
Right.
And they were like, I want the cheese grater. So we figured out how to get the cheese grater. And then in 2016, I got my first book deal. So our shop kind of grew, with these one product at a time, one thing at a time. And then it grew into apparel. And then in 2014 or 15, I did my first tour. It was just these opportunities that came and I said yes to them. So it wasn't like I was out there chasing, like, what's the next thing I'm going to do? What's the next thing I'm going to do? Which is what I think a lot of people get lost in today because they want to do everything all at once. And I just think the best thing is to let your brand evolve and see what comes to you. Everything you chase is going to run away.
Right.
Whether that's a guy, a business deal, you have to kind of learn to lean back and feel what's right.
Well, I think that's like with any business too. It's like, and I'm sure you can attest to this, when you start out on one path, it doesn't usually go that straight path. It kind of goes this way and that way. So I think when it's organic, it just naturally evolves, right? Like like you said, maybe you didn't set out to have products, but that's what your audience was looking for. They connected with you. They saw what you were using and they wanted it. So I think that's like, I think when you just start out, you just got to kind of go with it and just let life take you down the path that you're meant to follow. And sometimes we don't know why we're going that way, but it ends up like, look where you are now, right?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it was the beginning of influencing.
Right.
There was no word for that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But, if I use this, maybe other people will want to use it too.
Right.
But we didn't know. We really were like authentically using the cheese grater. It wasn't product placement.
right. But people connected with you through that.
Yeah.
Because maybe they felt like, oh, my Nonna used that, or I've seen that in my household. I want something like that because I can feel that connection.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was kind of like picking winners at the track after a while. When I realized that maybe I did have this like special power to select things that really mean something to people. And in 2019, I did my last tour in Italy. I haven't done a tour in Italy in 6 years. And I did my last tour. I got married that year and then the world ended. But on my last tour, I went to Capri on the last day of my Sorrento tour. I got a bracelet with a cornicello on it, with an Italian horn on it. I wrote an Instagram caption. I took a picture and people went buck wild. And I told my father, I was like, we need to get this bracelet. He's like, how are we going to get the bracelet? You don't even remember where you bought it. And I remember a girl telling me, can you draw me a map of where you bought this in Capri? I will go. And I was like, sure, just give me the guy's business card. Like when you go. She did. We called him. We imported 200 bracelets. I was like, Dad, I just have a veto. I just have a feeling. And Vito was like, no, it's not gonna work. Nobody's gonna want this shit. So we got the 200 bracelets. We sold them in 2 hours.
Wow. That's insane.
And, sometimes that happens.
But I love that somebody was like, draw me a map. I'm going to go find it. And then comes back to her, gives her the person. Like, they volunteered themselves for that, which shows like brand loyalty and the connections you're building. Oh.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing that the bracelets represented, because it's a good luck charm, right? It represents fertility, virility, protection against the evil eye, all these things. That people took this bracelet so seriously that, there's an old wives' tale that you're not allowed to buy it for yourself, right? Okay. So the thing is that, yes, that's technically true, but it's like knives or pearls or something. If you buy it for yourself, you can't, you have to get something back. Okay. Like you can't pay for the whole thing. So we had this thing where if you buy one of our Italian horn bracelets, we give you a penny back.
Oh, okay.
And we would actually package little pennies that came with the bracelet. And if people did not get a penny, God forbid, they would be calling. They're like, I'm going to have bad luck now. It was really important to them. It was emotional.
Yeah. I'd be like, get this evil eye off of me right now.
Right. Or they're like, it broke. And people thought this was like a business tactic. But like when the Italian horn breaks, it means it worked. It means it absorbed the evil eye for you. Mm-hmm. So that's not just like, I'm selling a cheap bracelet. Right. It happened to me where it's like, oh my God, this broke. It's like, and that means it's like a lightning rod.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's cool. It all happens slowly is what I want to get at, is that like you have to kind of give yourself the time to grow. I think now the way influencers come up in the industry is like, they go viral and it all happens so quickly. Mm-hmm. And you don't have enough time to catch up and say, who am I? What do I want to say? What do I want to communicate? How am I going to monetize this? I'm so lucky that I had that time to evolve because, I know exactly what my brand is about. I know exactly what I want to do and what I want to put out there and what I don't want to put out there. There's so much rush to be the most viral, be the most successful, be the biggest, the it person of the time. And I never was. It took 10 years to be this overnight success for me, but I'm very comfortable with that.
Right.
Because, if it had happened a different way, I wouldn't be who I am.
So it's funny that you bring that up because that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. It feels like, especially now, everybody wants to be a content creator, right? And whether it's in the food space or any space, right? But it's more than just snapping pictures or shooting video. There's a lot that goes into it. So what's the biggest misconception that you would say people have about the time and the dedication that it really takes to do what you're doing?
I think it's really not just like a 9-to-5 job. People expect that they can make one piece of content and that is good for, a couple of weeks. It's just not true. Like your mind is constantly working when you take this path. What am I going to make today? What am I going to make tomorrow? It's being strategic about it, but also allowing things to happen naturally. Right. And, you don't understand that when you are your own brand, you will work 24 hours a day. You don't think there were moments where I just want to go sell ice cream for somebody else, and not have a business that goes with, never mind just me, that people really believe that they deserve access to you 24/7 and all the personal things that happen in your life. Right. But, when you own a business, if something happens at 2:00 in the morning, it's your problem. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't work for anyone else. You work for you.
Yep.
And you are the brand and you have all this control. And that's nice sometimes, but it's an incredible amount of pressure. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people burn out because they can't keep up with the demand that people have of you. Right. When you are a content creator and the brand is about you. It's insatiable.
Well, it's like probably 24/7. Your mind is kind of always a step ahead of like, what can I create next? Or what, even for you, like in business, what's next? What are we doing next? How do we stay fresh? How do we stay relevant? How do we stay connected?
I think for someone like me, the most important thing is to have boundaries in the content that you create, in what you share, because, there's a broad spectrum, right? There are the people that do dating content, that do food content, that do family content. And, it's all great, but you have to sit with yourself and think like, do I really want to share like my last pap smear? Like,
you're right.
You have to decide what you're really comfortable with, because it's so easy to say, I should make this video, it'll go viral. It's like an important thing. It's great. But at the end of the day, will that feel good in your body? Right. Will you feel good about that later? Do you want that out there?
And it lives out there.
And,
so it doesn't go.
And you still deserve to have things that are just for yourself. Right. You don't sign a contract in your own blood that says, I will share every detail of this facet of my life. Right. I don't think that's healthy.
No. And one thing I always love about you is you're always very confident in your voice and who you are, and also what you want to share and where your brand is going, right? So even lately, in terms of your content, become a little bit more open to sharing some of these personal things, like your Nonna's Alzheimer's, your dad's cancer. So how is it for you now to say, you know, or when does that point happen for you where you're just more comfortable to say, you know, I'm going to change the course a little bit and lean into that?
I think when all those things happened, it felt expansive for me to share those things. It's like, you know, I've gotten much better at listening to my body, listening to my nervous system, on what feels good and what doesn't feel good to put out into the world. And when my father got cancer, it was healing for me to share that with everyone. When my Nonna was going through her strokes that led to her dementia diagnosis, that it was important for me to put that out there and to create a community around it. And I realized that people were so attached to my family at this point that it didn't feel right to not bring everyone on that journey with us. And I'm in the beginning, maybe it was a little bit uncomfortable, but ultimately I think it was the right thing to do. It was the best thing to do. You know, it's always been a really important part of my work to not just feed people at the table, but like help them feel seen at it. Being real has always been more important to me than being comfortable, because being comfortable is great, but it's not really where we grow. Like it really is in those moments of darkness, of discomfort, of longing, of heartbreak, when we meet ourselves the most honestly, right?
Yep.
And I think in sharing those uncomfortable moments, like when you let people really see you, other people feel seen, other people feel comfortable. You know, we're not alone in our stories.
Right.
We just need somebody to go first. And I'm not uncomfortable going first.
Ah.
And you're also being authentic, because I think when you open up about certain things, people can connect on a deeper level, right? They see themselves in your situation. So for instance, if you talk about your Nonna and her dementia, so my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and now I can connect with you, right? Like I hear you talking about it. Maybe I wasn't somebody who really wanted to, I don't know, lean into that, right? Because it's, you know, that's a devastating thing to go. Everything is devastating, but that, especially to see somebody in that situation, it's difficult. So right there, right, you don't know how many people you're touching, right? Because you're talking about it and they might be like, wow, I never really spoke about it, because it's hard to talk about. And hearing you talk about it maybe helps them a little bit. So you never know. My point is, when you become uncomfortable, you don't even know how many people you're helping. And there's so many, because they connect on that level. And so you're being your authentic self. And there's nothing, I mean, to me, there's nothing better than that, right? Like you're putting yourself out there, you're being vulnerable, but those people who really connect with you, they appreciate that.
Yeah.
And they appreciate you for doing that.
I think especially around a subject like dementia that is so heartbreaking for so many people. And it becomes hard to articulate because it's such a mix of feelings, you know, about the person that you love, that you essentially will lose twice, you know, because their memories, their essence really goes before they do.
Right.
And you're kind of left with this void of who they once were.
But they're sitting right in front of you.
They're there, but they're not there. And in caring for them, there's so many different emotions, because of course you're happy they're still here, you're happy they're still alive, but you can also feel this complex guilt around it, because it's not always happy. There are beautiful moments that can still happen. There are moments of lucidity, there's silver linings to the clouds, but ultimately you're caring for someone that will never get better.
Right.
That will only keep declining.
Right.
And I used to think, you know, oh my God, this is like having a toddler.
Yeah.
And how am I going to be a good mom if I don't have the patience for this? And someone once told me, they're like, it's not like that at all, actually. Because when you care for a toddler, you know, there's moments of frustration. There's hard moments. There's poop explosions. There's you know, but there are moments of joy.
Right.
And a toddler will get better. A toddler will grow and change and get smart and, you know,
and evolve.
Yeah.
Into
and with
an adult.
dementia, it's knowing that from this moment, things will only get worse.
Right. It's like it's going backwards.
Yeah. And it's such a hard thing to go through with someone. And there's so much burnout, and there's so much caregiver burnout that people don't talk about because they feel so ashamed. Like, this is my loved one. I should be happy to be doing this. And the reality is that it's so natural to have mixed emotions about it.
100%. And I think, like, you hit the nail on the head, because, you know, my grandmother, obviously we lived with her. And when it got to the point where she became a danger to herself and everyone who lived in the house, for my mother to have to make the decision to put her in a safer place, it broke her. And because she just, you know, and it was, so it's very heartbreaking. So when you can connect with somebody and have that conversation, because unless you are in it, you can't understand it. And you don't know what it's like to, even if they're having a good day and you are out of your house, you're in a panic because you don't know, well, are they going to slip into a mode that is not a safe, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. So I like when you share about that, because I can connect with you on that. And it makes me say, wow, like, there's somebody who understands that. Because if you, like I said, if somebody isn't going through it, they're never going to understand it. And I hope people don't have to understand it, because it's not something you should have to go through.
Well, it's just also breaking down that fourth wall that I think we have with influencers, especially like the New York influencers today that are so perfect and, you know, just live this life of Pilates and Stanley Cups and, you know,
brand
like,
story in itself.
and vintage finds, you know. I mean, my life is not like that. My life is just not friggin' like that.
No.
My life is...
I can't find any vintage finds, and I haven't gone to Pilates, and I can't tell you how long.
No, it's... I don't love the direction we've all gone in, where we have these, like, Sex in the City lives when, you know, that was a fictional show to begin with. And, you know, real life is so messy. You know, my real life has been so messy. There have been great moments, but, you know, I went through a lot. I got divorced. I cared for a parent with cancer. I, you know, care for a grandmother who has dementia. I run a business. I go to therapy. I exercise.
You have a lot going on.
But it's all this collective life that I have that is not not, you know, perfectly explained in 30-second clips. You know, I would hate to make a video like that where someone watches my life and think she has it all together and I don't. And I don't have it all together. I don't have anything together.
No, and I love the transparency.
Yes.
She's not afraid to be uncomfortable. And you find comfort, and people find comfort in that too, right? Because we're all going through stuff, and you're the one to say it and put this truth out there that people are thinking. It's not always rosy and picture perfect, and it's not that New York fabulous lifestyle that everyone thinks that New York life is like. It's raw, it's real, and people come to you for that, and you're not afraid of it. But at the same time, too, you're going through so much. So how do you also, in the process, you mentioned therapy and all these things, so how do you handle coping and coping mechanisms for sharing all this content? I mean, it's a lot to share.
You just have to take the pressure off yourself to be perfect. Like, it's, you know, you're always evolving. That's just the only way to say it, is that we're constantly shifting and evolving. And, you know, if I want to make different content tomorrow, I just will. I try to not put the pressure on myself that I have to be one thing all the time. And I can't make a fun video today and go back to making a cooking video tomorrow, that I have to act a certain way or look a certain way. You have to honor yourself and how you feel and what you really want to do. You know, because if you're doing this for other people, for the views and the likes and the clicks, like, you'll never really be happy.
Something you just said just sparked something for me. What I love is that you're not afraid to step out of your comfort zone, right? And I think what you just said, if you want to make this video today, a cooking video tomorrow, trying new things, right? I think when you just stay in the same lane, it kind of gets like, it's not fresh, right? You want to expand. So recently, and I love that you challenge yourself creatively, you had an opportunity, which I loved, in a recording studio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for your new show, Spaghetti Wars. And I think that was amazing. I need to know that. Like, I need you to, I need you to talk about going in the recording studio. Because when I was listening to you and you were talking in Italian, I was like, I don't know what she's saying, but that's so
good.
beautiful. Like, you could have, I don't even know what you could have been saying, but I was like, say that
We
to me.
need more
That's,
Rosella on TV.
yes,
without
like
a
that
doubt.
was your voice.
Without
It's
a
just,
doubt.
it was soothing. Like, even if I wasn't even
Thank
looking
you.
at you, very soothing. So keep going in the studio, but I want to know, tell us about yours, but also about that experience. Like, I give you a lot of credit. I don't even know if I could have done that, but you know what? I like that you challenged yourself.
You know, imagine people wanting to hear this voice. You know, it wasn't. But the thing is that what I have to say about that when people are like, "You can change your voice," and I'm like, you know, there are different people inside of us.
Right.
You know, there's different facets to us. We're not one way all the time. So I filmed this pilot for a show called Spaghetti Wars, where I'm one of the judges on this new food competition reality series, and it's been really exciting to go through that process. We shot the pilot back in November in St. Louis, Missouri, which has a very cute little Italy called The Hill. So we filmed the show, and it's in post-production right now. It's in negotiations with different networks. But a couple weeks after we finished filming, one of the producers called me, and he and I have gotten really close. You know, it was really like a family working on that show. We had Erica Vetrini, who did the season 1 of The Apprentice. We have Gino D'Acampo, who's like super famous in England, hosts Family Feud in England. We have so many wonderful people. And Spaghetti Peppy, yeah, that's his name.
That's
He
fantastic.
calls me up and he's like, Ro, I wrote a song. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, we want to use it in the opening credits of the show. And it's just this like fun song of Ro, you know, maybe you do some like little Italian spoken word at the end. He's like, I saw that video you putting on your makeup.
Is she doing it to a southern accent?
Well, Missouri, I don't know.
I was
Like,
going to say, is Spaghetti Puppy Southern?
he's got like a twang. It's
at
Midwest.
all.
I don't
That's
know.
fantastic.
That's what he
though.
sounds like.
But I love it,
It was
though.
great. I
That's-
just wasn't expecting him to have a southern accent.
That's what he
That's
sounds
great.
like in my head. You
That's
know, I'm
fantastic.
from Brooklyn.
Right.
You'd think he has a southern accent.
Right.
But he says he wrote the song,
That's
and he
fantastic.
actually watched one of my reels. One
Okay.
of my reels where I'm like, you know, one of the reels I do for me, for fun. I don't care if you don't like them. I do these reels sometimes where I like do like a get ready with me, like I'm putting my makeup on and I say, you know, poetry in Italian, or just like these beautiful like Italian quotes that I see and get inspired by, and I just feel like doing it. Some people don't like those videos. They're like, stick to cooking, get back in the kitchen. I don't
Then
care.
they can swipe.
Those videos make me happy.
Keep
It
doing
makes
it.
me happy to make them, and I'm gonna keep doing it. I don't care what you like.
Exactly.
That's for you. This is for me. So he saw the reel and he was like, I just want you to do like a little spoken word at the end, like in Italian. I think that would sound so good. I was like, I don't know how it's going to sound, but like, I'll do it. So they brought me down there, and we go to the recording studio, and the producer said, you know, we want you to do it once in English, once in Italian. I was like, okay. So I got in there, and it was this really beautiful poem that Charles Bukowski wrote about people who miss each other. And this voice just came out of me that I don't think I even knew that I had, you know?
Right.
And it was interesting. And they were like, that sounds so good. And I was like, so like, you know, I'm always that person that says yes and figures it out.
Right.
Instead of saying, no, I can't do that. I'm embarrassed. Like, I can't. It's like, so what?
Exactly.
So what? You'll be embarrassed for 10 minutes and then you'll get over it.
Right.
Like,
and
if-
probably you're the only one who's embarrassed, meaning everybody else is like, oh my God, I love this. And there was really nothing to be scared about.
You know,
Yeah.
being self-conscious is a waste of time because it's this like fear-based choice that you're making.
Right.
You know, if you don't do things out of fear, you know, if you let fear drive the bus, you're going to crash.
Right.
It sounds really cheesy, but I really always try and do things from a place of love instead of fear. You know, because when you're afraid and you don't do something, you don't send that text, you don't, because you're afraid of what's going to happen,
Right.
that will never work out. But if you stay open and you say, I kind of love doing this, I really want to say this, I really want to write this. I really want to make this video. And you know it's from a place of love. That will never go wrong.
Right.
Even if you don't realize it in that moment, it could take 2 weeks, it could take a year.
You'll never know.
That choice will never be the wrong choice.
Well, just like if you never posted that video,
Right.
Spaghetti Peppy would have never heard it or watched it, and then you
Yes.
would have never had this opportunity.
Exactly.
So take that chance, post that video, like you said, send that text or whatever it is that you're hesitant about, because you don't know. It might be nothing, but it could be something.
If I let some asshole make me afraid
Right.
of making videos like that because it's like, I don't like it, where would I be?
Right.
Well, that's probably coming too from a person who can't step out of, like, they're in just that one zone or that one lane, which that's not really living. Because if you don't, I don't know, if you don't step out, if you don't do things that scare you, okay, 20 years from now, 30 years, which they go by fast, you're going to sit there and go, well, I really should have did X, Y, and Z, but it's too late now to do X, Y, and Z. So now what?
I learned a long time ago that playing it safe is the most dangerous thing you can do in your life.
Right.
It got me into a bad marriage. It held me back professionally. That feeling of safety is not safe at all.
Right.
Where you think you're safe, you're probably really not. You're just too scared to feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Rosella, I've loved chatting with you today. I know Sandra did as well. We're so
Yes.
grateful for you to be here with us. How can people find you from here?
You can find me at Rosella Rago, and you can watch videos. And if you don't like them, don't tell me.
Or swipe.
You can find all my recipes at cookingwithnonna.com, and you can shop our online store at bottegadelanonna.com. And you can't come to Italy with me because the tour's full.
Yes.
But next year.
Next year we're there. Thank you.
Thank you.